Good morning, students. We have discussed a lot about the Renaissance in English literature. We have discussed about American Renaissance, and then every country has some sort of, you can say, artistic revival. So we also have Indian Renaissance in literature, such as we have Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and then you can say the father of Amitabh Bachchan, that is Harivansh Rai Bachchan, who were the prominent figures during the Indian Renaissance literature, who were writing in their own regional languages, in Bengali, in Hindi, in Urdu, so on and so forth. The same way we have Harlem Renaissance, which began in 1920s after the First World War, and it was a movement which was all about revival of African American music, dance, art, poetry, so on and so forth. So it all began in 1920s. So actually what happened was around this, after the First World War, 1920s, and there was a law, Jim Crow law, which was there in America. And according to this Jim Crow law, no black people was allowed to enter the restaurant where white people used to eat. Black people cannot use the restrooms of the white people. Black people cannot use the bus, the traveling services where white people used to sit. Black people cannot use the same water from the fountain of white people. They cannot go to the theaters where white people used to go. So it was sort of slavery. Black people were prohibited for the basic human rights. Even the law, the legal system has freed the black Americans from the slavery. The constitution has prohibited the slavery, but they still feel that nothing is going right in their direction. So what happened was, these black people who were living in South America started migrating from South America to North America, particularly in a city called Harlem. This Harlem is a part of Upper Manhattan in New York City, and they started migrating from South America to North America. The white people living in North America was against slavery, and that's why they accepted the black Americans coming from the South America. So in a particular city, Harlem, they started living there, these black Americans. Alright, now what happened was that these black people who were living in South America moved to the North America. They migrated to North America. They were suddenly they are free citizens now. For many centuries they were slaves, and now they are free. They were living at the commands of white men, and now they don't have any history. This Harlem Renaissance is a movement which was a need of an hour, because they don't have history. They cannot find out that what is their identity. So this Harlem Renaissance worked as establishing their identity, establishing their culture. It was not all about the history of African Americans. It is about the present of African Americans living in North America. An important term which is associated with this movement, that is New Negro movement, you can say. So this is about new culture, new identity, and it allowed these black people to behave in certain ways. It helped both white and black people living in North America to live in peace and harmony. We have writers associated with the Harlem Renaissance that are Langston Hughes, Claude McKay, Zora Neale Hurston, and Alan Locke. It is not like that these writers are only black Americans who were writing the works who were in North America. There were also writers who were in South America, who were still living in South America, and they were writing their own works. The famous South black American writer is Richard Wright, who has written work Native Son. This Native Son is very important from your UGC NET perspective. There were questions from this particular novel, Native Son. So try to go through this novel also as you are preparing for your examination. Alright, so coming back to this Harlem Renaissance, which is a movement which is trying to establish sort of identity, which is trying to help the black Americans how to behave, how to, you can say, live a life as a free citizen. And another reason is that there were no black Americans in the history. They all suddenly disappeared after the beginning of 20th century, and now there were black American writers who came up, who started writing about their culture. So this is another reason for the emergence of these new sort of writers. A lot of novels were published, essays were published, and then a music was invented. Yes, and they invented a music, jazz music, some sort of a new invention in the history of musical industry, jazz music. They expressed themselves through jazz music, and their poems also, you can say, was co-aligned with this jazz music. The works associated with this important movement is Langston Hughes' poems Harlem and I Too Sing America, Claude McKay's works If We Must Die, Harlem Shadows, Songs of Jamaica, and Benzo, A Story Without Plot. And the next one is Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. The last one is Alan Locke's The New Negro. Alright, you have to go through the work Their Eyes Were Watching God because it was a part of UGC NET syllabus and the questions were asked from this particular work also. Remember the titles of all these authors which I have just mentioned. Also remember the poet Langston Hughes, his work Harlem, his poem Harlem, and I Too Sing America. These are just 10 or 20 line poems, so it will take you just 5 minutes to go through these two poems. Try to go through these poems, that will help you in the upcoming examination. For the remaining writers, simply remember their titles and who has written which work. Alright, also remember this Richard Wright's Native Son. Go through this work Native Son in detail. Alright, so this is what all Harlem Renaissance all about. If you have any query, let me know in the comment section below. If you are new to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe the channel for more updates on English literature. That's it for this video. Thank you.